Well, the night goes on forever. We try to make it last. We were passing time together, just laying in the grass, and looked up at the heaven, and we saw the worlds collide. We were lying still and watching. They were flying through the sky. The stars in Oklahoma. Never seen a night so cool and clear. Shooting stars in Oklahoma burn so bright and they disappear. Well, the moonlight has a way of throwing shadows on the night. It would be a shame to waste it on the place we had to hide. With the morning glowing bright and shining light upon our faces, we faded with the dawn. And when our separate ways meet the stars,
I like this song.
Never seen a night so cool and clear. Shooting stars in Oklahoma, they shine so bright and they disappear. Oh, the stars in Oklahoma, the banks of Lake September, they lead you through the darkness on the night you won't remember. Is everyone that easy? Do they all just play the fool? Or are they all just out here looking for a way to break the rules? Say it like a photograph of grace. Fools need supervision or a gift for saving face. Yeah, we got it on a handshake, bought it for a song. Yeah, chase a simple feeling, doing something wrong. Need the stars, no more. Never seen a night so cool and clear. Shooting stars in Oklahoma, shine so bright when they disappear. Shine so bright when they disappear.
All right, good evening. I'm John Stewart. Welcome to Three Questions with Ricky Quinn. It is Tuesday, 9 o'clock on the East Coast, 8 o'clock there in Nebraska, Ricky. And fortunately or unfortunately, it's 2 o'clock here in Hawaii. So it's a beautiful afternoon here. And I don't know if it's cold and windy there in Nebraska or Oklahoma, but I'm glad we could sit down and have a conversation. I'm excited. Tonight is our 9th episode, Ricky. No, 8th episode. 8th episode.
9.
No, it is number 9. You're right. Yeah, because number 9 last week. Last week we had a great conversation with Lance and Sunshine Freilich, and I'm excited. The reason why we played the song "Oklahoma Stars," we've had several of these episodes featuring Oklahoma when we had Ryan Brand there at KBRC, and then we interviewed Cody Roy and Aaron Dickinson live in Oklahoma, and down at the Ricky Quinn Clinic, had an opportunity to spend some time with Tommy Kilgore, and Tommy is joining us tonight. So welcome, Tommy.
Hello.
Can you hear us okay? Great. So
Yes, I can hear it. Thank you.
good. So if you're new to our little shows here, the whole point of this is we sit down, have a conversation about 45 minutes or a little bit longer. And, it's just an opportunity to sit down, talk about horsemanship, talk about stockmanship, talk about all things dealing with Ricky Quinn's world. This started out being an opportunity for me to ask Ricky some questions, and then now we've been having some special guests. And so our format's pretty simple. I get to ask one question to our guest, and Ricky can chime in as he usually does. And then our guest will be able to ask Ricky a question. That's always a fun one. And then to back clean up, Ricky gets to ask our guest a question. So Tommy, if you're okay, I'll go ahead and get it going. For people who
I'm
don't
good.
know you, Tommy, you grew up in Coweta, Oklahoma. I know that you've lived there your whole life until you moved to Morris, Oklahoma in 2005. You began learning your farrier trade as a kid with Kenny Childers, and then went on to Oklahoma Farriers College under Bud Beeston. And then you graduated in 1987. You went on to work under Dr. Rick Redden and have been shoeing for 34 years. I know you married your high school sweetheart. You've known her since 15 years of age, Tammy. And anybody who knows you knows that you and Tammy are quite a pair. You guys have 3 children, a couple grandsons. And there's a lot of great things that happen at the Buck Brannaman Clinic. Unfortunately, one of the things that happened to you was that's where you met Ricky Quinn. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's where I met Ricky Quinn, at the Buck Brannaman Clinic.
Well, I have to start off with asking the question because anybody who's ridden with Ricky, and Ricky, don't be offended by this, but sometimes you can be a little critical of people, and sometimes you can say some non-flattering things to challenge people. And when I hear something like he's the best I've ever met, and when I first heard Tommy Kilgore's name, you said that he's simply the best farrier you've ever met, and you rarely compliment anyone like this. And the first time I met Tommy, I rolled up to your clinic at Donnie Chalupas' place outside of Kansas City. And when I showed up, there's about 8 or 9 people standing around watching Tommy shoe a horse. Nobody was saying a word, and everybody was just intently watching. And there's just something about that. And so, Tommy, I just had to ask you, since Ricky absolutely says that you are onto something. My question for you is just, what's your philosophy as it relates to horseshoeing?
Well, my deal with the horseshoeing and my philosophy is understanding the horse, understanding the anatomy of the horse, how each thing works. Everything is a basic fundamentals. Without those fundamentals, we have nothing. And I've seen it go a lot of different ways over the years. Guys do this, do that. My philosophy is understand the anatomy of the horse, practice those basic fundamentals, which are very simple. Center of the leg, level, line up your pastern, and a lot of the other things will take care of themselves. I don't try to make a big deal of any of it other than keep those fundamentals strong. And as long as I keep that in, I've had a very successful career with that. And that's what I teach today. Keep that in there.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time teaching people how to shoot. How much time are you doing that? And is that something that is a special passion for you?
Well, as a young farrier, no, it wasn't. But the last few years, it's became more a great strong passion. Kenneth has been gone for many years. Bud Beeston's been gone. I'm one of probably the youngest farrier that's that's still shoeing, that graduated from Bud's. And just a few years ago, it just kind of hit me that, I am at the end of the line for that style of education. And with Ricky's help and some others, it's the opportunities that came about. So I want to pursue that because I don't want to be the last. I want to share what I got shared with me by some of the greatest farriers that ever lived. And, I'd like to hope someday I could be of that status as Bud Beeston's. And so, but I can at least carry on his legacy and keep teaching his fundamentals and his style. So maybe we can go on to half and half, shoeing and then half teaching. So I don't know.
Well, I tell you, it's at this last clinic where I saw you. I'm going to share some photos real quick. It was I was overeating, and once again, you guys are all standing around shoeing a horse. Can you see the pictures right there?
Yep.
This is Tommy's rig for those of you that are joining us, and pulls that behind his trailer and pretty much has everything set up. But I walked up and was watching you work on this particular horse. Whose horse was this, Ricky? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, apparently I shod the hinds wrong. So Tommy said, bring him over here. We got to fix it. So he did.
Oh, so Well, I can beat that because as soon as he was done with this horse, he looked at me, shook his head, and said, "John, go get your sorry horse and bring it over here." He felt so bad for my horse. There he is working on your horse. Here's Rodney. This is my horse who, and I'll be honest. I mean, I'm a new convert to the Tommy Kilgore church, I think, because I'm like a lot of people who, when I think about a farrier, I think about how much it's going to cost me for a full set. And where I live, there's a lot of people who haul horses up to the Amish, and they're not thinking about feet first, and the priority for that. I thought that I had a pretty good farrier because he showed up on time and takes care of all my horses. And
in a lot of ways, John, that is a pretty good one when they show up on time.
yeah,
Very true.
That's half of it.
but you educated me in a very short period of time, and these pictures probably don't do a great job of showing the story, but when this is the left front, and you took a marker out and you marked on the hoof exactly how much, or I should say how little of the foot was actually hitting the ground, correct?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
you go ahead.
Well, where we made the marks on the foot, you had over 2/3 of the foot in front of the apex of the frog, or the center of rotation, and you only had basically if you went in square inches, you had this big horse walking on just a matter of a few square inches of foot.
Yeah.
And it was all to the back side of the foot, really overloading the back quarter of the foot.
And then this picture here, where you see what it looks like once you put that shoe on there. Hold on, I'm trying to get to the one. There you are working here. Here they are side by side, but I'm trying to get that one that Ricky took right there.
There it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and it just looks 100% different than what it did before. You even told me that we were using the wrong size shoe. And, I asked Ricky, I said, how do I find somebody that can do this up in my area? And Ricky, you were very honest and said, well, good luck.
Yeah. Yep.
And I honestly, Tommy, had not seen anybody who had, there's one of these pictures here that's hard to see, but where you've got the laser going on right there. Talk about how you use that.
Well, I use that laser to help owners understand, and the new apprentices understand the markers that I'm looking for, to line up the center of the shoulder and get your weight bearing directly underneath. Use it on the hind legs to go from the ground through the hairline up to see where it's shooting, where it's going to on the foreleg, to help line up. Those are outside external markers that, if everything's pretty normal on the inside of the hoof capsule, that tells me my bone angles and how my columns are lining up. And, the more I share that with the owners, the more I share it with, obviously the apprentices, they really pick up things faster because they understand what we're looking for.
Right.
I can go, oh, well, you got to get here, you got to get here. And then when I show as owners, such as on Rodney, when you walk him in, up in his shoulders, through his withers, all up through his neck, he looked real lazy and just really, really lazy. And as we trimmed one foot, and you seen the elevation of that shoulder and all that, that put it back where a horse should be. Give his expression.
It's unbelievable to me, looking at the difference between the shoulders. And as a horse owner, you start feeling really, really guilty for for what you've done to this horse. But then you also sit there and go, it's amazing how he just hangs in there and stays with me. But, I think on this day, the easiest thing I could say is it was like you gave my horse a gift, and, just gave him a totally different chance at just being successful.
Well, thank you. I hope we did. That's my goal, is to give them that relief and allow them to work for you the best they can, and give you all all they've got, Ricky and I had talked about this earlier, the mindfulness, keeping the mind, to where they'll go on and work through and work through. And there's so many in the world that can get that accomplished. But if we got their feet right, it makes that job half, the difficulty level is way down then, because the horse wants to please us anyway. But if he's hurting, he's
So
going to.
so when I first got around Tom, I met him at the Brannaman Clinic, and then I did a clinic in Oklahoma there, and Tommy rode in it. I didn't know he was going to ride, and he ended up riding in it. I knew he was a farrier, but there's a lot of people that are horseshoers, and I had a brown horse that is right around lunchtime, and a brown horse that was leading to the trailer, and Tommy was standing there just nonchalantly looking at his feet, and I said, "What do you see?" And he goes, he didn't really jump right into it necessarily, and just telling me what he saw. Um, I shoe horses, and he just told me a couple of basic things and things that I'd never heard of, and I just said, "Can we go to lunch here?" And so we did, and asked him more questions, everything else, and then just by how he talked about it and the way he went about things. I mean, he's if there's anything about Tommy when it comes to shoeing, there is nothing about it that's showy. The forge rarely gets turned on. It's all just fundamentals, basics. There's nothing showy about any of it. And so then going through, and that's a huge part of where I gained a lot of respect from him, is because there isn't a lot of show. It's just fundamentals. So then moving along, at that same, it might have been a different clinic, Tommy, I can't remember, but my red horse that we call Emerald, he has a really interesting right front foot, and I've really been struggling, and this horse is so bad for me. I'd get him shod, and I could shoe a horse. I mean, this Tommy told me I wasn't terrible, but so I'm taking his word for it, but I knew I could shoe and keep one sound and go outside and cowboy on him and not blow shoes, and and they maintained a decent foot. They didn't run out like, get long in the toe and lose the heels, and I didn't have those problems. And so I was close, but this red horse had me stumped, and I'd get him shod, and I mean, I'd trot him the length of the arena, and he'd rip the front shoe off. I was just lost. I mean, I just done. So I had to keep hiding them heels and chasing that thing forward to keep that shoe on. But then the horse wasn't right. And one of the that clinic there in Oklahoma is where it was, and I was loping him around, and Tommy said, it's amazing what you're getting out of that horse and horsemanship based on how he's physically built. So that's a testament to your horsemanship, he said. But can you imagine if we can get that foot back underneath of that limb in a way to where he feels better, actually what that horse will be able to give you. And so then that got the gears turning in my head, right? Is what that statement right there. Your horseman, look what this horse is giving you, Ricky, based on what you're asking, right? That says a lot about your horsemanship and where you go mentally in the try from him. Now let's get that foot back under that limb and get him feeling good, and then imagine what he'll ride like from there. So then after that, he came to Nebraska here, right in there, and did the clinic. Maybe we shod before. I can't remember. I did some crazy stuff that Tommy wanted me to do with him. I did it without Tommy's help, and then he came back in January. We reshod the horse, and it's completely changed how that horse travels. Completely changed it. And I've got heels hanging out there like in the past. I wouldn't have hung them out, rip them off. They're hanging out there supporting that foot. That horse's timing's right in his movement, and you don't hear him click a shoe. And so those fundamentals and stuff that Tommy talks about in the basics, another thing like in that picture there, I shod that roan horse, and Tommy watched him travel, and he said, "You're close, but I think we need to bring him back just a skosh more to help with the load." And Tommy didn't do much. I was pleased to see how little he did, but he did something. And I'm learning from him that 1/8 of an inch sometimes is a mile, when it comes to balance in those feet and the timing of everything. And so it's been a very, very interesting journey through all that stuff, John. So I can relate to you when you say it's kind of changed my mind here a little bit in how how I see my horse, how I see things. But if there's anything that's that's really tough, this is a perfect example, John, of ignorance is bliss. Because sometimes when you don't know, you can get by, but now you have an answer and good luck in Indiana, right?
Tommy's not going to be hauling out to where Tommy is every 6 weeks, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
On Ricky's horse on Emerald, he could fit up everything, that horse. And he kept trying to hide the heel, as he said. He kept trying to hide the heel. And when Ricky was trying to do that so he could keep a shoe on, he kept complimenting the problem. He didn't realize Ricky is very close. He was very close when he's shoeing. But just like you said, that 1/8 of an inch is so huge. Either way, an 1/8 too much, an 1/8, not enough. But when he would take and roll that heel to keep him from tearing it off, he was telling that medial heel on that right front to just keep going forward. And that's what just kept him working. And that horse is amazing to watch him work now, and how willing and flowy he is. And, I know he's got some more age, and Ricky's rode him longer, so that's improved it as well. But how much quicker he just comes to you now with whatever you're asking, You're not having to work him much. He just goes right to it.
Yeah, and then another thing, John, that was so we do a clinic for Tommy here in Nebraska every year. This year it's 18 through 22 of January, and I think I'm afraid to say there's a few people more than last year. I know that, and we just keep horses lined up and we'll just go to it. But what last year's clinic, I didn't realize that how when and maybe Tommy can talk about this a little bit too, because this is part of the fundamental stuff that just aha moments for me. One thing that Tommy talks a lot about is we don't necessarily shoe the foot. We shoe the horse to align his body. That was a really big one for me. Because any 99.9% of horseshoers that I know, and I don't know them all, but that I know, they just look from the hairline down, maybe the ankle down, and what's that?
Yeah, they're just shoeing the foot.
Yeah, they're just shoeing the foot, right? Just picking the foot up and shoeing the foot, and that was me too. And then we go through a process of looking at the shoulder blades and the withers and the radius of the knees and the hocks and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, to go through to tell you how much toe, how much heel, of give you a baseline of what, almost like doing a little bit of groundwork, John, with your horse, hind and front, to see where your horse is at before you get on. Tommy, I have you do a walk around and kind of take note of things so that when you start to go to it, you have a better idea of how much toe, how much heel, just where to go to align his body. And that was a huge aha moment for me too. And it's like, well, I used to think we just put iron on the bottom of their feet so the rocks don't hurt them, and that's true. But there's also a huge part of it too, that when we do this, even if you trim them, you're trying to align the skeleton. And maybe Tommy can go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have to line the horse up. It doesn't, if people, I've seen it so many years, farriers all over the country, they will see from the knee down or from below the knee. They don't look at the knee radiuses. They don't look at the withers, their spine, their hips, hocks. They just see from there down, and they get under there and they trim the same amount all the way around. They just trim up what's sticking up to trim it off. Some guys say, oh, I pull the heels way back. Well, that they get into a habit. That's all they do is pull heels, but they don't maintain toe length. Where what we do is we go around the horse. We get a pretty good idea if we only need to trim toe, or we need more toe than we do heel, or if we just do need to trim just heels, because we have a lot of horses get blowed out in the quarters. And a lot of people say, oh, well, he's just down on his heels. No, his heels are forward and not back to the fullest perimeter. And they'll just butcher off all the toe. Well, that heel's forward, they butcher the toe back, then they blow the quarters out. I just seen an ad the other day, and there was a guy made a remark about it. He was bashing on people. Oh, you can't back the toe up. Well, he doesn't understand the foot. He doesn't understand the anatomy of a horse. So he pulls it back, but he doesn't balance the foot. You got to balance the foot where it's underneath the limb, hind and the forelimb. And if you don't know how to go around and evaluate a horse, you're just trimming foot off and the way you go. You know, you can't ever get a balanced foot that way, or a balanced horse.
And then another thing that really stuck in the beginning for me was, of course, hairlines and those things. But another one that was just really huge for me, and actually probably, I think Tommy would agree to this, but when he says, you know, they just trim the same amount of hoof off all the way around. Well, what I've learned from Tommy is to understand where in the foot the horse is loading the most, where the majority of the load is, and wherever the majority of that load is, the energy is going somewhere from there. It's almost, so I almost visualize the foot as if it has a flow to it now, rather than just a block of wood like I used to. And so if an outside heel's hitting, usually it's coming across that foot and coming out the inside toe, right? And causing the toe to be longer, or sometimes not. Sometimes it stays and just drives that heel forward and it blows out the side, or then it starts to rotate the hoof capsule, and there's like a gajillion different things that take place, right? And then the hoof being off center of the frog, and so many different things of where's the flow of that foot. And that tells you where the load is. And so learning how to trim to distribute the load differently so the foot can come back to get back underneath of that limb. And that those principles, the base, and that's knowing what I know now, that is really basic. I mean, that's not necessary. It's advanced. It is, because you got to understand some things, but it's very, I mean, it's the fundamentals. That's your hindquarters front end right there, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, absolutely. And everything you see on those horses' feet, other than, you know, a big cut or something, it's not natural. Just the foot, the waves in the foot, the rings in the feet, around the feet, they are all trying to tell you something. You know, those quarters will bulge out because, you know, that's always a standard. The heels are too far forward, and they'll get those big waves in the side of the hoof wall throughout the quarter area. But everything on that foot from the hairline down is trying to tell you something. You just have to slow down and learn the anatomy of the foot and how to balance that back out, because the energy does. It goes in diagonals, it'll go forward, and then it'll shoot at the diagonal across.
Rotate the hoof capsule. Yeah.
Rotate the hoof capsule. Yes.
Yeah, rotate, get to where the hocks rotate. Yeah, I mean, you've shown me so many different things of what takes place.
Yeah. Well, when they come in and load, and if that medial heel's in the wrong spot, it'll just suck that hock in, and then it really rolls out, or vice versa. It'll, you know, when he loads, he'll push out into that hock. So you need that perimeter as even as possible. And that is all basic fundamentals. You know, there's just a few steps there. If you make sure those are correct, 95% of the rest of the stuff goes away. You know, we get a lot of horses in the country diagnosed with navicular. Well, they'll either pull their heels way back and try to drive them up with a wedge or an egg bar shoe, which actually causes the heels to contract and the toe to run forward. There's lots of ways that, you know, old theories that over time of studying under Bud Beeston and Dr. Redden and other guys' theories and seeing things, it's a matter of leverage. You can leverage them backwards or you can leverage them forward. And, you know, the leverage backwards, your navicular bone and your heels and your navicular bursa is going to pay the price. You leverage them forward, the coffin joint's going to pay the price. So that's why you find your medium and your balance to keep your horse, you know, sound, and the hoof underneath the limb. That takes that leverage away. And
one of the things, and what I've seen with you, Tommy, too, is I've been able to be around you more than once now. And from seeing the horses that I've had personally, because, I mean, Emerald, I mean, he had me put a 2-degree wedge just on the inside heel to get this foot back. I mean, the way this horse grows, would you say, Tommy, he's a little bit conformationally that way? It's not necessarily the shoe. You know, if you let him go, boy, that foot just goes crazy.
Oh yeah, there's a conformational issue there. He kind of wants to be out there anyway. But just like Ricky was starting to explain there, we removed all of that medial heel, and then we went back with a wedge to kind of get him up. And we put him in a little awkward position for a while to try to change that growth pattern. And then Ricky went right out of it and hasn't had to since. But if he lets him go, it'll run on its own back there.
Oh, I tried it. I let him go. I called Tommy and said, what do you think about pulling a shoe on this horse? And he said, well, try it. See what yeah, we can't do that. It takes off. There's not enough support in that heel naturally to keep him right. Yeah.
No. And we're not overloading him and forcing him anywhere. So it's not hurting him doing what we're doing. And eventually, as young as he still is, it might just open up and start staying at some point in time if you stay after it. But we're not forcing anything. We're not over leveraging him back over off from it. And that's the important part. A lot of people try to make things happen they're going to create another problem. Just use the fundamentals and follow them, stay with them.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation is fascinating. I mean, and I can listen to the two of you guys talk for hours about this, but talk to me real quick about this clinic. So you're doing a clinic at the Lazy U. Is this open to the public, Ricky, or is this closed?
Yeah. The clinic, I really want to make it worth Tommy's time. We don't have very many people in it. I know the value that Tommy brings. I mean it. I haven't met anyone like him. I've met a lot of horseshoers. I've met some good horseshoers. Looking back, but the way Tommy goes about it, the way he describes the flow of that foot, that's the word I'm going to use, right? The load and all these different things. Maybe somebody who's listened to this or goes, oh yeah, I know so-and-so that does that. Well, then please share. Because I mean, really good horseshoers of Tommy's understanding are really, really hard to find, you know?
We learn these horsemanship in clinics. I'd love for people to know, I mean, Tommy, how many of these clinics are you doing a year where we can kind of say, you know, who needs to attend the clinic? Do I need to go and bring my farrier or?
So John, where there's three people that I used to say there's two types of people. Nobody's more prideful than a cowboy and a Marine. And I think you can throw a horseshoer in there too. So it's Tommy, he's gone to places where I knew they need help. So I'd get a hold of Tommy and he gets in contact and they fly him in. Well, they're resident horseshoers there. The majority of them aren't receptive to it. I mean, Tommy, every place you've been, they end up firing the horseshoer. The horseshoer doesn't want to listen to you. They'll just sit there and look at you and just do it the way they want it. I mean, it's a tough one, John. It's a really tough one. But this deal at the Lazy U, it's 5 days. He goes through some classroom stuff, and then 99% of it is going to be with horses, underneath the horses the whole time. There's some people that have never put shoes on before to people that have got quite a bit of experience shoeing, and he'll just fit wherever those people are and just a lineup of horses. And if people want to come and watch, I mean, it's a little bit expensive to watch because I'm trying to keep it. I don't just the people that come to learn from Tommy, I really want them to come out of there. I don't want them going in there with just pieces of stuff and coming out of there and just saying, yeah, I've learned under Tommy Kilgore, you know. So to be there for 5 days, it's $1,000, you know, and that's pretty reasonable, really, you know. But I mean, it's $1,000, and people are asking to come watch. If you're going to stand there and watch, it's $500. That's how I'm doing it, and so the serious people will usually come, you know, and take it serious. But the way he goes about it and the way he does it, and I've been around him to where he's helped me, and I know several other people that he's influenced that the detail on how he goes about it, it's really actually very easy to take in, you know. And then where else do you do clinics, Tommy?
Well, we've done some in Iowa, Cedar Rapids, and we've done it in Chesapeake, Virginia at the Triple R.
Yep.
And then, you know, training the boys at McGinnis Meadows, which that's a private deal inside. And then in New Jersey with Brad and that crew, I've worked with that crew up there at Harmony Hollow.
What's the best way for people to learn about your clinics? I mean, obviously, Ricky, you're talking about coming in with the right that frame of mind. I mean, anybody who's gone to a horsemanship clinic, it's the same thing. I mean, you have to put aside, the cowboy marine ego and realize that, hey, I need to learn here. And, there's a feeling as soon as you show up that you think you know a lot, and all of a sudden you're tremendously humbled, and, you're focusing on the basics. And that's why I get excited hearing about this clinic that Tommy does around horseshoeing and saying, this could be transformative for people who, are pursuing this as a career, but also for those of us that just need to understand, this art of horseshoeing and what the gift is to my horse. I mean, it's ignorance is bliss, like you said, Ricky. Now that I realize this is like, this is something that I need to learn, I need to apply, I need to offer my horse. I need to make sure that, I'm giving him the best opportunity I can to be successful. So Tommy, what's the best way to kind of find out about where your clinics are and things of that nature? Because this has turned into a little bit of a commercial for you, and I know you don't feel comfortable just us talking about you in a commercial sense. I know people who watch this are going to want to come to one of your clinics.
Well, we're going to start trying to get a list together, coming in toward the first of the year, of where we'll be, what we'll be doing. We'll be doing some day camp type clinics for owners, trying to help the owners understand what's happening with their horses, just like with you over there, last week at the clinic. I hope at some point in time we can have a session maybe with Ricky when we're at a clinic and help some more of the other owners and new owners, just like we did with you. We'll start working on it, getting a schedule out of where we're going to be. And with the shoeing, whether they're an advanced shoer or already went to school or whatever, I think you can ask Ricky, or I can give you a list of all of them that I've worked with so far. They never hear me just come in there and say, no, you're wrong, this is right. I always offer them, let's look at this, guys, as another point of view. And most everybody, after we pointed that out and showed them what I was talking about or what I was saying, they were all on board. No one was offended, and I don't want to offend no one, because most of the guys that are out there shoeing, they're only doing what they know. They might not have had a very good teacher, and they don't know. So I don't go about it insulting anyone.
Yeah, a lot of people just learn the trade because, I think it was his dad or somebody said, you need to learn how to shoe horses because you can always make a living. And I think there's a lot of people who just learn the trade that way, but what they do and what you do is such totally different.
Well,
okay, so let's move on. Tommy, you have a question for Ricky?
I have a question for Ricky. He's pretty much already answered the question that I had. We did earlier, is just talking about his horsemanship. I feel is, second to none of the rest of the horsemen in the world, But my question is since he started developing his farrier skills and helping his horses that way, how much easier, in a percentage wise, does it feel to him that his horses take the training? How much less work is it for Ricky to get them to do the things, since he is more aware of their comfort with their feet and their balance?
You know what it's done for me the most, Tommy, is you met my friend Randy, and he was, I'd actually started shoeing way before that, or not way before that. Gosh, I started shoeing with Randy when I was like 18. So just a couple years before that, right? I started shoeing from a fella in Wyoming, and there would be just a big old pile of shoes there with used shoes, and you'd go pull a shoe out of the pile and pull the nails on it, and if it was close, man, you just nail it on. And I don't know if they ever wore the same size shoe on all 4 feet, but that's how we did it, and run pack strings, and those horses got used a lot, but there was some basic things in there that he talked to me about and halfway balancing them. And then I got around Randy, and I could shoe a little bit when I was around him, and then he just the way he went about it and his experiences, we were able to keep horses sound. Well, looking back now, Tommy, right, we could say that this is what it's taught me being around you, is that I thought if someone were to ask me and they lead the horse by, is the horse sound? And if I didn't see his head bobbing from limping, I would say yes, the horse is sound. Okay, so my ignorance back then is those horses were sound because they weren't limping.
Mhm.
Since being around Tommy, right, and looking at things and a combination of other things, but looking at things completely different in how to align the skeleton through the feet in the horse, my idea of a sound horse is completely different now. Soundness in a horse is really the movement of the body, the whole body, not just them being lame because they're abscessed or whatever it is. And so how it's helped me the most, Tommy, is to feel the soundness through the whole horse.
Yes.
And it's given me the confidence, because I shoe my own, I do shoe my own until Tommy says, bring that sumbitch over here, we got to fix it. Then Tommy shoes it. But I shoe my own, and I try to go off based off of those fundamentals that Tommy shows, and seeing it. And I know the things that Tommy's seeing in these horses, if in mind that it's small, because if he's being honest with me, it's small changes. So it's given me a lot of confidence that if I feel something in my horse that's off, I've already checked the box on the feet, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So it can cause me to look to another area as to why the soundness isn't there in this horse's body, Yep. And so it's given me a lot of confidence there. Another part, Tommy, that has really opened my eyes is when you get them right. All horses, as we all know, there's a cadence, a 4-beat, a 2-beat, 3-beat, right? Walk, trot, low. And even John, for you, your horse's toes, the feet, the way those feet were, your horse still had a 4-beat gait at the walk, a 2-beat at the trot, and a 3-beat at the lope, right? It was still there. I mean, it was that movement was still there. What I'm starting to notice more, and I'm seeing it. It's not just something that is just there. I'm seeing it. The rhythm, just things are different in the timing of when the horse's feet leave to when they land. And that's what Tommy brought to my attention on my red horse, is the way that right front was, and I was ripping that shoe off. It was all timing. It was timing, because I could dub the toes off and I could do this and change the brake over and do all these different things, right, to shorten things up on this horse so he can't overreach it. But he still was. But the way Tommy had me shape that horse up with wedges on the inside heel and everything else, it changed the timing of the feet on when they left and when they landed. And so now the foot was actually connected to the rest of the body. It wasn't its own animal, if that makes sense. And now I'm getting to where I can feel that when I ride my horses. I can feel that flow and that timing in there now. And so it's brought my awareness up. I can feel that. So then in turn, it's actually helped my horsemanship more, because it's brought my timing to another level for me personally.
Yeah, so it's allowed you to focus on something other than just the training. It lets you work on yourself. So
Sure.
Well, that's
I mean, in a pedestrian way, or I mean, somebody like me, Ricky, who is it the difference between like wearing, I mean, a human being wearing clogs and all of a sudden putting on Air Jordans if they're an athlete? I mean, is it just it? I mean, because like when Tommy did that to my horse, then the next afternoon you said, Tommy was like, hey, how's he feeling? And even in my level of horsemanship, I sat there and said, honestly, I think he's feeling a lot better. And I couldn't describe that as timing, but I just think that he was not as frustrated when I was asking him to do something, because his feet felt better.
Well, I'll give you an example. There was a clinic I was at with Tommy, and a friend of ours was riding this little roan mare, and she was struggling down on the end of the arena. right? And this is right the time when I started shoeing with Tommy. And I didn't really understand the fundamentals, right? He just said it was lunchtime, and then I rode this horse that afternoon, kind of thing. And the horse had a struggle down on one end of the arena, getting pretty bothered and pretty scared down there. And so horsemanship clinic. So I asked, can I ride your horse? And so I did. And I rode the horse, and I supported the horse in a way that I could get it to go down there, and it stayed with me on that end of the arena. I accomplished the goal on the horsemanship side, right? And then Tommy talked to me about it later, and he said, that horse's feet are so out of balance. If you can get that horse's feet right, it will be easier for it to let down and be down there on that end of the arena. And at that time, I was open. I knew there was something I needed more in my shoeing. For about a year before that, I've been chasing some people. I thought maybe it had to do with hand forging your own shoes, that was the next level. Yeah, I didn't know, but I knew there was something more I needed. So at this time, new to Tommy and I's relationship, I was kind of like, I'm listening. I'm not saying no. I think she needs to bring up her support level for the horse. But you just said something that's very interesting because of what we're doing in my horses, right? And now you see that horse today, the lady has changed. She hasn't changed that much because it's been years for her. Tommy got that horse comfortable on his feet, changed the horse. And so for me, it's like, well, thanks a lot, Tommy, for somebody not coming to ride in the clinic anymore, because now they don't need me, right?
Yeah, she wouldn't even show up now. She wouldn't even show up last week.
Yeah. So getting them comfortable on their feet, John, like what your horse Rodney is built a way that the way he was in his feet, what I saw, and then what I then taught you and Tommy talked about. I didn't even talk to you about it, but I was watching you. The timing of the feet was different, John. The timing's different. And therefore, when the timing's different and the leverage is different, and blah, 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 the things that Tommy can go into in detail, the horse lets down because he's comfortable on his feet. That's all horsemanship is. Tom Dorrance said it on his deathbed. It's all about the feet. And in a lot of ways, it is not just getting them to move, but balance too.
John, you would ask the shoes, about the Jordans or whatever. A superstar is going to be a superstar, no matter what. But how long is he going to get to be a superstar? If his feet are not properly balanced and taken care of, he'll go work and he'll be that superstar for a while, for a time frame. But eventually it'll catch up with him. And then that's when, I've been in the performance horse world for many years, shot a lot of futurity horses and AQHA horses, and it's a real challenge to keep those top end superstars together. And without those basic fundamentals, it wouldn't happen. I've got to work on some of the greatest horses in the world, and some of them's been a real challenge to keep them in that show pen. And I've seen a lot of others of them great top end horses that did not have the proper fundamentals, and they didn't get to fulfill their aged event years because of it. They'd go lame. And back about Ricky's, when he was talking about following other guys, and when I first met Ricky and was around him a little shoeing, he's like, yeah, I want to learn how to make shoes. I want to learn how to make shoes. Ricky, what did I ask you?
Why?
Remember? Well, no. There's hard to learn how to shoe a horse first before we make shoes.
Yeah.
He didn't think that very well, but I think he realizes now that hand making shoes is a secondary deal. Let's balance a foot. And I'm very proud of Ricky Shoeing and the boys at the Lazy U and all the rest. They're doing a great job for, Ricky shod for a lot of years, but he sure took instruction really well. And the crew at the Lazy U they're two amazing young men, and they're really coming along as farriers, not horseshoers.
In spite of the manager above them. Ricky, it's your turn. What kind of question do you have for Tommy tonight?
This is a big one, and it's a good one. And it's I've tried to actually. That's a question I get. Something that I get a lot, Tommy, in clinics is, people will discuss feet and that kind of thing, and people will say, "How do I get my horseshoer to come back?" Because a lot of times, a horseshoer will show up once, and I don't know if they get busy. I don't know what's going on, but I guess my question for you is, to you being the horseshoer and the places that you go back, and you make sure they're on your schedule and you don't miss that 6 or 8 week cycle with them.
Mhm.
But I know there's probably others that you might have to let slip. What is it about those people that you have, besides just years, but what is it about it? Why, what do you look for in an owner of a horse and the horse that would keep you coming back and not move them around on the schedule to where they're your priority?
Well, my clientele that I've got today is kind of different than the rest of the clientele. But how I started building that clientele is the ones that came in when I came in, they didn't roll out red carpet for me, but they treated me with respect. They had their horses ready, or they had their crew there and had the horses were caught. I didn't pull in at a 9 o'clock appointment and 10 minutes after they come out drinking their coffee and have to go catch their horses. Be prompt, be there. If it's muddy, have them horses clean. Don't be washing them with a water hose as they drive in the driveway. That's things that keep farriers from coming back. But my biggest part of it is when you're standing there handling that horse, be prompt, be there. Not on your phone, not hanging on the lead rope, not letting him smash me in the ground, that kind of stuff there. That's the problem. So many people don't see those things. I know farriers have a bad habit
I'm
of
guilty of every one of those, Tommy.
not being
No,
prompt.
I think it's one of those things of just consideration. Keep talking, but I just sit here and go, yeah, this is me as a horse owner working with a farrier and doing exactly that same thing. Oh, they can go get my horse. It's muddy out there. Go, So keep talking. I love this question.
That's the thing is we are there as a professional. We have a schedule, and I've always tried to be prompt. If I told a customer I was going to be there at 6:30 in the morning, I'm going to be there at 6:30 in the morning because I expect them to be ready. I'll get their horses done in a timely fashion, and if everything goes well, so I can get out of there and get to my next appointment that I set up with the next client. That's a big problem both ways, but the owners don't seem to see that, that they need to be as prompt as the farrier needs to be, and be more aware of your horse, know more about your horse. It's bad when I can go in and less than 3 minutes know more about the horse than the owner knows. They just need to bring their awareness up and just realize we're human too. They can help us out a little bit and keep them off of us, or have them, go to the horsemanship clinics or hire someone to handle these horses to, let them learn to understand they can stand there and relax. They don't have to fret us and don't have to fight us the whole time. It's funny. Ricky asked this question a couple of weeks ago. I was in the airport, and a lady was troubled by, she can't get her farrier to come back. And we had visited, and she said, well, why are you going to Cedar Rapids? I said, I'm going to do a horsemanship clinic, or for owners of farriers clinic and horsemanship. And she's like, well, what are they about? And I said, well, it's to help people like you so their farrier will come back. She didn't take that very well. She didn't think it was very funny, but that's what it was. When I went up there to Cedar Rapids, I wasn't teaching them to ride a horse, but I was teaching them how to evaluate their horses, recognize the problems, how to help the farrier, how to stay prompt, be there and be aware of what was going on. And that's the biggest problem, is we have a lack of that from the owners. And a lot of guys say, hey, they don't care about me. I'll go find somebody that does. And that's why they can't get farriers to come back. All of those things that I just throw in there. It's not that.
Tommy, what about I've I've got a new goal for this next year. I mean, my Sarah, she's always been, you know, at least a 6 week to 8 week schedule on whether it's shoeing or trimming and all that. And I'd let a horse go 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and she'd be hounding me and I'd ignore her. And God bless her heart, it's just the patience that she's had for me to figure this out, of the importance of it.
In all of your
And
life.
now, what's that, John?
No, I just said in all of your life, her patience in all of your life. So keep going.
It's a little free. Gotcha. Sorry. So now that I'm trying to, just running horses in the hills and going in a straight line and up and down hills and everything else, now I'm starting to ride horses a little differently, to where I'm asking different movements and with a little bit more heat and a little more pressure on their bodies, to where I'm starting to notice soreness differently in a lot of these things. And so now I'm starting to appreciate the 6 to 8 week, depending on the horse, shoeing schedule. And what about that, Tom? I mean, and so there's a few people that are coming out of the woodwork to come down, Tommy, for us to help them, right? And for me to help them. And one of the big things for me now is, it's like, okay, for you to come down here one time and us to talk about this, I don't want to do that. But if you want to get on a 6 or an 8 week thing and we work together and go through this and stay consistent, then I'm willing to help you. Can you talk about that a little bit, Tommy?
Well, those, on your performance type horses, that 35 to 40 days, you're losing. Well, let's do this. A horse will perform his best if a horse is balanced at shoeing date. He will perform his best at 17 days. He will get enough natural growth back. He'll balance back out, and everything will kind of get really balanced up good for him. The growth patterns, his weight bearings, all that. And then it starts going downhill from there. Now, I'm not saying a horse can't perform at 6 weeks, but you're at a lot higher risk, because things will start drifting forward on you, that foot will. So you're loading suspensories, you're loading your tendons, your joints are not right. So, the ranch type, straight traveling horses, they are really just as much risk, because you're asking them to really reach out there and stretch. That foot gets elongated, gets to running forward on it. They're overloading that back third, dropping in that heel. And that's another reason a lot of farriers won't come back. People don't want to schedule up on a six week schedule. I have show horses I shoe at 5. I have show horses I shoe at 6. In the heat of it, we'll shoe them horses once a month, to make sure those horses are right on the money. I shot my futurity horses that I've got going to Fort Worth this year. They will all, by the time they show the first day, they'll be 12 days into their shoeing. That'll get them through the first few rounds. They'll be shod before the finals again. So they will be good to go on the finals. We won't take no risk. So if you're going to keep them up, you're going to be right on keeping them shod. They don't need to go any more over that 45 days, because you're putting them at pretty good risk. The young futurity horses or prospect age event horses you're doing now, I would probably not ever let them go over 35 days. At least pull them off, clean them up, get your perimeters back right. If you're going to keep them up in confined spaces, not out on grass, if you have to, use 2 nails on each side, so you don't just punch a bunch of nail holes and wear out the foot before you get enough growth. There's ways to do it, but to keep that foot balanced and underneath that limb is the most important part. So, these performance horses have a lot of suspensory. They soar up a lot of those, just like the little horse of yours that we did at the clinic the other day. Opening that heel perimeter back up even more keeps him from getting sore in that hind suspensories, because he does want to get out and he's wanting to stop for you. So we're doing preventative maintenance there. I can't tell you all those tricks every time. You're going to have to pick them up as we go. But I had to give it away tonight. I don't want to take a chance to see that colt. I don't want to, when I have anything to do with it, I don't want to see him go down because we missed something. So that's why I'll point out things like we redid him. I want you to think about it. I don't, just like you don't give me all the answers riding. You make me find them. So I still do you guys that way sometimes, but I will make sure the horses are done, if I get a chance to help you.
Well, guys, I have to tell you, this conversation's been fantastic. I wish that more people could just see the two of you guys work together in an arena. Because Tommy, you are pursuing the horsemanship thing, and Ricky's being direct and honest with you. And then at lunchtime when we're looking at the horse, you're doing the same thing to him. And both of you just have a spirit of openness and trust with each other. And I think it's a great example for the rest of us. And I just, I appreciate this conversation. I appreciate this time. Any final words, Ricky?
Keep on keeping on. That's all I can do.
Well, thanks again. A couple quick things. One is, Ricky, you said that you wanted to get more people like Tommy Kilgore on here, people that not everybody knows about, but you think are just the absolute best in their field. And I think one of the first things I heard you say about Tommy is he's on to something. And when somebody's on to something, you want to I know you well enough to know that you want to try to figure it out, and you want to know what they know and what they're learning and how it helps expand you. And I think that's, it's great. So Tommy, thank you for joining us. This is a different conversation, than just having some of the other buddies on here talking about things. But I know, Ricky, that you want to get Mark Higgins on here, your friend from Ireland, talking about teeth and he flies over. Obviously, this year has been a little different with COVID, not being able to leave Ireland to come over. But like to get some different people who really are the best at what they do, and have a conversation like this that we just had with Tommy. Next week, go ahead.
And John, yeah, you're right with all of it. I lucked out finding Tommy because, like I said earlier, is I don't know anyone like Tommy. I know a lot of horseshoers, but I don't know a single one like Tommy. And I'm not just saying that. I really mean that. I don't know one like him. And I've asked Tommy, is there anybody that is at your level, and he said maybe one or two people that he knows of, that he studied with, right? And so there, and not saying that anything that what he's doing is new, and it's, when you look at it, it's so fundamentally basic, and it's just basic. There's nothing complicated about it. That's what I like about it so much. That's what's so kind of fascinating about it, is it's nothing sciencey. Tommy didn't come up with any kind of crazy new ideas because of this angle to this whatever degree it's not like that at all. And it's reading the horse and going, and anybody can do it. And I just know that for myself and where I want to be with my horsemanship, I said this before, there's a portion of it that their feet have to be right. And there's a portion of it where your saddle has to fit. It does. I'm learning this more and more all the time. That saddle has got to fit well. It can't be something that you just ride because you like the saddle and how it fits you, or you like the saddle because of who made it. The saddle has got to fit the horse. It does, to get everything you need to get out of them. Nutrition is really, really important. Those horses have to feel good in their guts. It's a big deal. And then your horsemanship. And you can still get by without a farrier and by without because I know, and the saddle fit and the nutrition and the horsemanship can be there, and you can still make them look well. That's what's so amazing about the horse, is what they give you. All these other parts, the shoeing, the nutrition, and the saddle fit can just be terrible. And it's amazing what they still try to do for you if you have a sense of horsemanship and understand where the feet are. They'll just use themselves up until they go crippled, really, because I've done it, Now what I'm learning is when you can line these other pieces up, it just really, really, it just complete. That's now what I know. And teeth is in there. Now what I know horsemanship to me isn't just about how you understand how to place the horse's feet and where his mind is. To me, my horsemanship is broadened to where I don't know if I won't be to Tommy's level because I don't shoe enough horses every day to have the feel he has. But if he can help me with the fundamentals to where I can shoe a naturally balanced horse, some stuff that's a little off, but just really balance one out. And I understand nutrition, the saddles that I get of Yonemans, and the
That's that saddle fit that Ricky was talking about. Ricky hooked me up with a lady back east. And when I went into her barn, she had a brand new saddle sitting there on the stand. And we get to looking at her horses, and I asked her, I said, how many new saddles have you bought lately? She said, well, how do you know that? That's why I seen that new one you said in there. And her husband said she's bought 5 of them. And I said, well, they didn't fit your horse, did they? She said, how do you know that? You didn't even see them. Well, I was looking at her horse, and her horse, the biomechanics of her horse was all out of balance. She was out. So it didn't make a difference who built the saddle. They wasn't going to fit because her withers and everything was out of whack. So a lot of the owners need to be more aware of that. We have a lot of people that want to look at a horse's feet and they think both front feet are supposed to look exactly the same. That's not the game. You got to balance the horse. And just because one foot, if he needs to be a little lower on one than the other, or a little shorter on one than the other, you got to balance the rest of the horse. Quit, because they always taught us that in horse shoeing school, oh, you got to try to make them match. Shape your shoes, both front shoes, and then you trim and you're shoeing. Well, that was just the first week. Then Bud was like, no, you got to shoe to balance the horse. And so the saddle fit is very important. And a lot of people don't realize that those feet can have a lot to do with that saddle fit, balancing that body up. So then going with Ricky's nutrition and all of it, it all has to work together. But the more educated we are as owners, the better we can make the quality of life for our horse.
Amen. Well, I think that's a great thing to end on. And I'm encouraged because I know now we're going to have a show on nutrition. We'll have a show on with Mark about dentist. I know we'll have a show talking about saddles. Next week we actually Andy Dent said he's going to join us next week. Ricky, Andy, I'm excited about having a conversation with Andy, even though I don't really care for him too much. I don't like him. We talked about that last week, but Andy's a guy who pursued horsemanship and really has been a good student of it, and studying, going to Brandman clinics, riding with you, and then really. He's not a young guy. He's a parent and got a bunch of kids and stuff, but he dove into the competition side and really got into cutting horses and is enjoying that. He's not at a pro level, but he's pursuing it, at his level there in Utah. And I think we're going to have a really good conversation with Andy, just because every one of us, as we look to grow, whether we want to show, whether we want to compete, whatever that is, about doing something outside of the arena instead of just being a person who's just kind of doing horsemanship clinics and just working on that, how he's put it to action. So I don't want to insult Andy, but I think anybody who rides a horse and wants to do something different and do something new and kind of push themselves to the next level, it'll be a great conversation to have, because Andy, and you can't use an excuse that you don't have time. Andy's he's a big business guy. In private equity, he's got 20 kids. He's got he's got an amazing wife. I think they have 6 children, and he is got a very significant role in his church. And so a guy like that, you sit there and go, how does he have time to even spend time on horsemanship? And now he's really taking it to another level and pursuing cutting. So Tommy, thank you for this conversation. Ricky, thank you for once again letting me just kind of take up an hour of your time and engage you in conversation. I just like sitting here eating popcorn, listen to you talk to somebody. But for those of you that are watching, thank you for watching. I know we get these great messages from everybody saying you're enjoying what we're doing. Tell a friend, invite people to join us. This has been a great conversation, and join us next Tuesday with Andy Dent as we talk about his pursuit of cutting horses and just kind of his growth as a horseman. So thanks again, Tommy.
Thanks,
Tell
John,
Tammy
for
thanks
having
for setting up
me.
the
Richard,
iPad. We
Thank you.
appreciate Tammy taking care of everything so we get you in
Yep.
front of a camera.
All right. Thank you guys for having me.
You bet.
Thanks,
We'll see you guys.
All right. See you.
All right. See you guys.
See you, Ricky.